Hello and welcome back to Game Domain. On this channel, we've given you guys more than a few editions of our Top Sellers series. Videos in which we go back and look at the best-selling games on various consoles throughout the history of gaming. But we realize that there's something we're leaving out of those videos, and that is talking about the individual consoles themselves and how they changed the world of gaming. So rather than cramming all of that information into our Top Sellers videos, we thought it would be better off to launch a console retrospective series, where we individually look at various gaming consoles and identify what made them great and so memorable that we wanted to make a video about them. So, enough talking, let's get into the video. Nintendo is not only well known for its family-friendly and nostalgic home consoles, but also for its incredibly successful and popular line of handheld consoles. This line of handheld consoles started with the release of the Nintendo Game Boy back in 1989, and will be followed up 9 years later with the Game Boy Color in 1998. The Game Boy gave us so many wonderful titles, either continuing a fan-favorite series or starting one. The Game Boy era saw the addition of the wonderful fan-favorite Super Mario Land into the Super Mario franchise, the original Link's Awakening into the Legend of Zelda franchise, and the sequel to Super Mario Land 2, 6 Golden Coins. But not only did the Game Boy give us new installments of beloved series, they also spawned two of Nintendo's flagship franchises, Pokemon Red and Blue, sit atop the best-selling titles on the Game Boy, with Pokemon Yellow not far behind. These titles introduced us to the wonderfully expansive world of Pokemon, and were joined by Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal as the Pokemon franchise's main series titles for the Nintendo Game Boy. And of course, who could forget Kirby's Dream Land, which gave us the Kirby series. Looking back on it, the Nintendo Game Boy gave us so much, as its lifespan really lasted from 1989 to 2001, until the release of the main topic of conversation today, the Game Boy Advance. The Game Boy Advance, commonly referred to as the GBA, gets kind of lost in the shuffle of Nintendo consoles. Everybody talks about the amazing Game Boy era, which, as we just touched on, kickstarted Nintendo's line of handheld consoles. And everybody also remembers the days of the Nintendo DS, due to its groundbreaking wireless and touchscreen capabilities. But the Game Boy Advance era gets largely overlooked when fans are talking about the history of Nintendo handhelds. And to be honest, it should be talked about just as much as any other Nintendo handheld console. At the Nintendo Space World Trade Show back in 1999, rumors circulated that a successor to the Game Boy Color was on the way. The Game Boy line was 10 years old at this point, and it was frankly inevitable that Nintendo would be ready to move on into a new generation of handheld console. They kind of ran out of what they could do on the Game Boy system, with the 8-bit capabilities limiting them from creating and advancing the look and feel of all the franchises they had going for them. Under the development title Project Atlantis, the Game Boy Advance was officially announced on September 1st, 1999. The device was designed by French designer Guineal Nicolas and his Tokyo design studio Curiosity Inc. They opted to go with landscape design to promote better comfort of the player and easier movement of their fingers to each button needed to play a game. At this time, Nintendo was also developing the Nintendo GameCube, and they planned interaction between the two consoles from the very beginning. 11 months later, on August 24, 2000, Nintendo revealed the console to the general public. Nintendo pushed out 15 launch titles for the North American release of the console, giving players loads of fun right from the start. Now that you heard about the history of the console's inception, what makes this console so great? Well, the 32-bit capability of the system literally made GBA games run 4 times better than games on the Game Boy and Game Boy Color's 8-bit system. This 32-bit system allowed for, at the time, pristine color graphics that spawned the player into an immersive world right there in their hands, increased musical capabilities that brought us some of the greatest soundtracks of all Nintendo, and much smoother gameplay that we just hadn't seen in a Nintendo handheld console. The console promoted around 15 hours of battery life, which of course can vary based on the individual game you're playing, the backlight setting, and the volume setting. And perhaps one of the most important decisions that Nintendo made is making the Game Boy Advance fully backwards compatible with the Nintendo Game Boy. The implications of this were huge at the time, as this meant that GBA players could play any and every Game Boy game in their brand new console. This meant that they didn't have to get upset if their 12-year-old Game Boy broke on them, because they could play their Game Boy games on this all-new console. Pretty cool, right? We saw this again with the Nintendo DS, which allowed you to play GBA games through the game pack on the bottom of the console. The original white Nintendo Wii, which allowed you to play GameCube games, the Wii U being able to play Wii games, and the 3DS being able to play DS games. So this console pioneered one of Nintendo's most popular reoccurring features when it came to each console, as players will always be intrigued by the idea of playing their old games on their new console. But what about the console's games? Oh, well, here's the best part. Like most Nintendo handheld titles, the individual game sales market is clouded by the generation's Pokemon titles. The Game Boy Advance brought us the most immersive and realistic feeling Pokemon games to date, with the release of Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire in 2003. These games were released when Pokemon was on the downhill, and was arguably at its least popular point yet. But wow, these games sure gave us some amazing content. Ruby and Sapphire gave us the all-new Hoenn region, which brought us tons of glorious new Pokemon, all inspired by the region's tropical island feel. These Generation 3 titles were followed up with remakes of the original Pokemon Red and Blue, in the form of Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green. These titles brought us back to the infamous Kanto region, and showed it to us in a much improved graphical form. This generation of Pokemon titles ended with the Hoenn game's third title, Pokemon Emerald. Emerald is the best Pokemon game the GBA has to offer, and the Battle Frontier alone may help it take that title. But aside from these amazing Pokemon titles, the GBA also gave us new additions into the Mario Kart series, the Super Mario series, and The Legend of Zelda. The third installment of the Mario Kart series, Mario Kart Super Circuit, was the series' first handheld iteration. Although looking largely outdated to today's standards, this title was groundbreaking at the time. Getting a Mario Kart title that you can take in the car with you and play was unheard of at the time. And the fact that the GBA allowed it to look this good made this game all the better. We also received some ports of old Super Mario titles in the form of the Super Mario Advance series. The Legend of Zelda: The Minish Cap is one of the franchise's most underrated titles, and it is unfortunately overlooked when talking about this generation of Nintendo handheld games. And yeah, although fairly light, the Game Boy Advance game library is still one to praise, as nobody can overlook the strides that were made during this era to serve as a bridge between the Game Boy and Nintendo DS. The console's most well-known titles are certainly the trio of Pokemon releases in 2003, 2004, and 2005 that we talked about earlier. Just to put that into perspective, Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green, and Pokemon Emerald sit atop the console's best-selling games list. Yeah, 3 different Pokemon games take the 3 top spots. Tough to argue against these games being the best this console has to offer. We already talked about how this console improved on its predecessor, the Game Boy, but what is also largely overlooked is the precedent it set that allowed for the success of its successor, the Nintendo DS. The Game Boy Advance's lifespan as Nintendo's newest handheld console only lasted about 3.5 years, and it's no wonder that people view this console as only a bridge between 2 eras. The Nintendo DS would be released in late 2004 and would quickly throw the Game Boy Advance out of kids' hands and become their favorite handheld console. But what people don't think about is how the GBA pioneered many things that the DS brought to the forefront. While in the early stages of development, Nintendo toyed with the idea of the GBA having both a touchscreen and wireless capability. Wait, that sounds familiar. Oh yeah, those are the DS's 2 main gimmicks that they used to encourage people to buy the console. The GBA initially had these features, but Nintendo thought it would be too hard logistically to fit those features into the GBA's odd design. But because these ideas were already in trial mode, they were so readily available to be implemented in the Nintendo DS, which quickly stole the spotlight from the GBA. We felt it was necessary to go back and look at what made this console so great, because it truly is overlooked by so many Nintendo fans and gaming fans alike. This console improved so much on the Game Boy and pioneered so many great features that the DS would implement and build on. This console brought us 3.5 years of endless fun, filled with a vast array of awesome titles that gave us joy for hours upon hours. I mean, hey, the writer who wrote this video has 150 hours into Pokemon Emerald alone. Whether you view this console as a bridge between handheld gaming eras, a gimmick console that you didn't even buy, or like us, a massive part of your childhood, this console needs to be looked upon and praised by the community. For too many years has this console been overlooked and forgotten about, but that needs to change. And after looking back at the GBA and this console's retrospective, our love for this console is confirmed, and we will forever hear that little GBA startup sound in our heads. That was a long one. We were thinking of doing a series like this for a while, and we may even expand this to specific games, as well as covering other consoles in retrospective style videos like this. If you like this video, then you should most certainly go and check out our Top Sellers series, where we specifically made a video on the GBA's top sellers. We will leave the link to that playlist down in the description, so be sure to go and check that series out. Tell us what you thought of today's video down in the comment section below. Don't forget to click subscribe and leave a like on today's video, as well as check out some of our recent uploads. Make sure you also check out the links in the description, as there you will find the link to our Patreon and to join our Discord. Join our Discord to connect with our staff here at the channel, as well as participate in the great Domain Legion content we have going on there. Our Discord is open to all gaming fans, as we now have over 400 plus fans of the channel and gamers talking about what we love to do every single day. So come on and join to participate in this great community. We would once again like to thank you guys for all of your incredible support. And thanks for watching today's video. We'll see you next time.